Good morning to BSc Nursing second year students and 2IDC students. This topic is for both of you. Today from last two sessions we are discussing regarding the renal system. So in renal system today's topic is regarding the acute renal failure. So first of all, renal failure. So before going to the renal failure, we have to know the some of the functions, because here the functions will be altering. So there leads to the kidney or renal failure. So you have to know what are the functions of the kidney. I think all the students may know, all the students will know what are the functions of the kidney. So before going to the in detail regarding the functions of the kidney, just I had created a small mnemonic, a wet bed. So wet bed means A is pertaining to the acid base balance. So the kidney will maintain the acid base balance, and W is for maintenance of the water balance. So and T is for toxins removal. So it will be removing the waste products and waste toxins that will be removed, toxin products. And B is for blood pressure control. So and then E is for making a erythropoietin, and D is for vitamin D metabolism. So this is a wet bed. So this is regarding the wet bed. These are some of the functions. So when the kidney will fail to function, when there is any problem in the tubules, or when there is any obstruction, so some of the nitrogenous waste and all this will be remain, and that will not be excreted from the kidney. So there will be alterations in the kidney function. So we'll go in detail. So renal failure. So renal failure may be partially or complete impairment of the kidney function. There will be a partial ga kavachu, complete ga kavachu. There will be impairment of the kidney function, which result in inability to excrete the waste products. So obviously the kidney has to excrete the waste metabolic products and water, but it cannot able to excrete the metabolic waste products and the water. As well as there will be some functional disturbances. So there will be functional disturbances like vitamin D metabolisms, so erythropoietin production. So there will be disturbance in that metabolisms. So and then these are two types. So what are the types? There will be ARF and CRF. So acute renal failure and chronic renal failure. So we are having some of the more definitions. So acute renal failure is referred to as an acute kidney injury. So it will be referred as an acute kidney injury, aka it is described as a sudden or usual irreversible loss of the renal function, which develops over days or weeks, usually accompanied by the reduction in the urine volume. So this definition is from Davidson. So there will be a sudden sudden loss of the function. So loss of the function that will develop from days to weeks, then accompanied by reduction in the urine output. So this is the thing. One more definition we have. So one more simple definition from Joyce M. Black. So ARF refers to abrupt loss of the kidney function. So this is also will be a sudden loss of the kidney function over a period of hours to few days. So it will be in this definition he says that suffer hours to few days, and the GFR will be false. GFR is nothing but glomerular filtration rate will also false, and it is accompanied by the decreasing or raise in the serum creatinine or urea nitrogen. So this is the thing. This definition is from the Joyce and Black. So here in this author he is showing there will be fall in the GFR and raise in the serum creatinine and urea nitrogen because of the loss of kidney function. So ARF is clinical syndrome characterized by the rapid. This is also rapid is also the very fast rapid loss of the kidney function with progressive, it will be progress to the azotemia. Azotemia is nothing but the accumulation of the nitrogenous waste products. So nitrogenous waste product like urea, nitrogen and creatinine. So that will be accumulated in the kidneys. So in this definition he says that there will be a rapid loss of function due to because of the accumulation of the nitrogenous waste products, that is urea, creatinine. That this definition is from the Lewis. So and one more definition from Brunner and Siddhartha. So Brunner and Siddhartha, he says that it is also a rapid loss of the renal function due to because of the damaging of the kidney tubules. Because of the damage in the kidney tubules, there will be loss of renal function. So they are having some of the uremic symptoms. So uremic symptoms are in mouth the patient will be feeling a metallic feeling, lethargic, headache. He will having sometimes he may leads to the epilepsy. So these are the uremic symptoms. So why these uremic symptoms develop means when the renal failure is there, it will through the circulation the urea will be transferred to the other parts of the body. So because of that, these uremic symptoms are most commonly, mainly it will be enter into the brain. So these symptoms, lethargic, fatigue, and having twitching, muscle twitchings, and then some of the symptoms like having a metal taste in the mouth. So these are some of the uric. We'll see it later, some of the and incidence. 50% of the cases this is a normal. So 50% sometimes 50% of the cases are normal or increased urine output. So and these people will be having an increased urine output. So they are called as a non-oliguria. So most probably they will be having 1 to 2 liters of urine will be passed per day. So normally oliguria means less than 400, but in non-oliguric cases it will be 1 to 1 to 2 liters per day. So that is the thing. And then most probably this non-oliguric patients will recover soon. And then some of the patients who are using the nephrotoxic agents and who are in hypotension or hypovolemic conditions, these are 5 to 7% leads to the ARF. And then some of the we are having some of the causes like pre-renal, intrarenal and post-renal. So these percentages, so the 55 to 60% people with pre-renal can be presented with the acute renal failure. That is a 55 to 60% of the patient will present. The intrarenal patients also 90% will lead to the acute tubular necrosis, and this 35 to 40% leads to AKI. And then post renal means less than 5%. This post renal is very rare, and then it is not that much common. So this will go in detail. So etiology. So coming to the etiology. In etiology we are having a pre-renal failure. So pre-renal means there will be a impaired blood flow. When there is a impaired blood flow, hypoperfusion of the kidney can be seen. Because of the hypoperfusion of the kidney, there will be a loss of there will be decreased amount of urine can be seen. And then why this impaired blood flow? Because why impaired blood flow is due to because of impaired cardiac efficiency. So impaired cardiac efficiency means how it will occur. So impaired cardiac efficiency occurs as a result of myocardial infarction, congestive heart failure, dysarrhythmias and cardiogenic shock. So in myocardial infarction, if there is infarction means the block, or in these cases what will happen, the the heart will not able to pump the blood. So it may lead to impaired blood flow. So when impaired blood flow leads to the hypoperfusion of the kidney. So dysarrhythmias means there may be changes in the rhythm. So that is nothing but the dysarrhythmias. And one more thing is a volume depletion. Volume depletion means reduction of the volume. So this when it will be reduced because of the hemorrhage, vomitings, diarrhea and nasogastric suctioning. In these cases the volume will be reduced. And vasodilatation. So vasodilatation is because of the anaphylactic shocks and any using of the antihypertensives and sepsis. So these are related to because of this it may lead to the impaired blood flow and hyperperfusion of the kidney, and there will be decreased amount of the urine. So this is the pre-renal failure. So we will coming to the intrarenal failure. So in intrarenal failure, there will be actual damage to the glomeruli. So there will be actual damage to the glomeruli or kidney tubules. So there, why? How it will be occurring? Because of the prolonged renal ischemia. Because of prolonged renal ischemia. Why it will occur ischemia? Pigment nephropathy. So in pigment nephropathy, what will be happening means there will be a breakdown of the blood cells. So this breakdown, the breakdown blood cells are accumulated in the kidney. So it will leads to the ischemia. So that will causes the damages in the parenchyma and then tubules. So it may causes the intrarenal failures. And then myoglobinuria. So in myoglobinuria will occur because of any crush injuries, any traumas, and then burns. So here this muscle containing muscle is containing very rich amount of the oxygen. So it will be excreted through the urine. So the muscles which are composed of the increased amount of oxygen that are excreted through the urine. So because of due to crush, trauma and burns. So that may damages the tubules. And then one more thing is the hemoglobinuria. Hemoglobinuria will occur because of the transfusion reactions and the hemolytic anemias. So here hemoglobin. And then some of the nephrotoxic agents. This is important. So from in pharmacology, we used to study every time the nephrotoxicity, nephrotoxicity. So here, so nephrotoxic agents. What are the nephrotoxic? Aminoglycosides and some of the radio-opaque contrast. So radio-opaque contrast which are used in the MRI, CT, and then some of the pyelograms, renal pyelograms. So at that time they are using these radio-opaque substances. It may causes also the renal toxicity. So for that reason, every time when we go through the CT or MRI or something, so that technician will say ask us to drink more and more amount of water, because it will be excreted through the urine. So and then some of the solvents and chemicals. So some of the solvents and chemicals like ethanol, glycerol, carbon tetroxychloride, arsenic, NSAIDs are also there, AC inhibitors. So infections such as acute pyelonephritis. So in pathology we had seen that the morphological changes that are occurring in the pyelonephritis and glomerular nephritis. There are number of changes. So there will be damages to the parenchyma tissues which are located in the kidney. So it may also leads to the intrarenal failure. So and then post-renal. The post-renal are obstruction to the urine flow. When there is an obstruction to how obstruction will occur? Obstruction will occur because of the urinary tract obstructions of calculus, tumors, benign prostate hyperplasia. Actually, you have completed this topic: benign prostatic hyperplasia and some of the strictures and blood clots. So because of this obstruction, what will happen when there is an obstruction? The pressure can be raised in the kidney tubules and leads to the decreasing of the glomerular filtration rate. So decreased urine output and then decreased glomerular filtration rate. So this is the post-renal. So we'll go into the pathophysiology. Some of the external factors lead to the reduced renal blood flow. Because of the reduced renal blood flow, there will be decreasing of the GFR and perfusion rate. So when there is a intrarenal, because of the nephrotoxins and ischemia, the two causes. So there will be in nephrotoxin, what will be happening? Damaging to the epithelial cells. So it may cause cells and obstruction of the epithelial membrane and may lead to block in the tubules. So there will be block in the tubules, may causes renal vasoconstriction. So because of the renal vasoconstriction, there will be a constriction because decreased blood flow. So when there is a decreased blood flow, it will lead to the necrosis. So there will be acute tubular necrosis can be seen. And then in case of ischemia, when there is an ischemia, there will be a disruption of the basement membrane. I have shown in the pathology which one is the basement membrane, which is the endothelial layer, epithelial layer. So you remember that picture. So that is a disruption of the basement membrane and leads to the destruction of the tubulars. So the destruction of the tubular leads to the decreased capillary permeability. Because of the decreased capillary permeability, obviously there will be a decreased glomerular filtration rate. When there is a decreased glomerular filtration rate, decreased blood flow will be. So that may lead to the acute tubular necrosis. So this is regarding to the. So mostly intrarenal failure can cause the acute tubular necrosis. So postrenal because of the obstruction, there will be increasing in the pressure, leads to the urine backflow. When there is an obstruction in the bladder, so it leads to the backflow of the urine. Backflow of the urine will form accumulation of the products. So accumulation of the products will damage the epithelial tissue. It may cause the impaired function. So this is the cause. The phases. So we are having initiating phase, oliguric phase and diuretic phase. Initiating phase is hours to days. So oliguria develops. So it will be initiating phase, but that is the initial phase. So initial phase that is for hours to days work. Oliguria will be developed. Oliguric phase. In oliguric phase, what will be happen? So that will be a less than 400 ml of the urine in 24 hours. This will be last for 10 to 14 days. Oliguric phase will be. And then the patient will be in oliguric phase. The patient will be having some of the uremic symptoms first appear, and then hyperkalemia is developed, and the patient is having an increased amount of urea, creatinine, uric acid, potassium and magnesium levels. So this will be increased. That is a urea, creatinine, and then urea, creatinine, uric acid, potassium and magnesium. So in case of non-oliguria, so in case of non-oliguria, it will be excreted to 1 to 2 liters per DL. So this non-oliguric stage can be seen in mostly usage of the drugs. They're like aminoglycosides, so hypertension drugs. So these patients will be representing as a non-oliguric patients. And then diuretic phase. In the diuretic phase, name itself indicates that there will be diuresis. So because of the diuresis, it may be there will be some amount of recovery. Because of the diuresis, some amount of recovery, the glomerular filtration rate will be starts recovering, and urine output will be some sort, it will be increased, and it will be for 1 to 3 weeks, and lab values may be stabilized. So all lab values will be stabilized and decreased. So lab values. And then coming to the normal function will be light. So in the what will happen? No, some of the because there will be little better, even though there is increased output and GFR rate will start recovering, lab values also stabilize. But what will happen? Some of the uremic symptoms will be appear in those patients in your diuretic phase. At that time, the patient needs careful monitoring and he needs the treatment. So we have to watch about regarding the dehydration symptoms. So the patient will be having a dehydration, so we have to check it for the dehydration. So we'll go and the next is the recovery phase. So this recovery phase can be last for 3 to 12 months. So 3 to 12 months improvement of the renal failure. So lab values will be coming to the normal, and in 12th month the patient will be very stable, and when the when GFR also increases, so this GFR is also increases. So these are the phases of the acute kidney injury. Some of the clinical manifestations. So we are having clinical manifestations. We are system-wise having a clinical manifestations. We are having anemia, infections, leukocytosis, defect platelet functions, and some of the neurological symptoms. Neurological symptoms like lethargy, seizures, drowsiness, headache, muscle twitching, memory impairment, and then cardiovascular. Some of the cardiovascular symptoms like the patient will be having a fluid overload. Sometimes we have to check it for the fluid overload. The fluid overload can be seen by the distension of the neck veins, and then tachycardia is also will be there. So we have to check it for each and every time. And then we will have congestive heart failure, hypotension. Earlier it will be hypotension, later it will develop as a hypertension, pericarditis and pericardial effusion. So arrhythmias. These are some GI disturbances will be there. Nausea, vomiting, metallic taste in the mouth, anorexia, stomatitis, bleeding, diarrhea, and constipation. So comparing the clinical characteristics of the acute kidney injury. So what are the clinical characteristics, how they are? So characteristics can be compared with the pre-renal, intrarenal, post-renal. How they are, we'll compare. So according to the etiology, the pre-renal cause, main etiology is hypoperfusion. In this hypoperfusion, the blood urea nitrogen. So blood urea nitrogen levels will be 20:1 proportion to the creatinine. So blood urea nitrogen levels will be 20 and 1 is the creatinine level. So the 20:1 proportion, that will be in pre-renal conditions. When you see the values, it will be 20:1 ratio, blood urea compared with the creatinine, and the same in the intrarenal and same in the post-renal. And coming to the creatinine, so it is a creatinine, obviously in pre-renal, intrarenal, post-renal, creatinine level will be increased. And urine output, what about the urine output, how? So urine output, obviously there will be decreased only in cases of non-oliguric cases. So and then intrarenal, it may be varies, often decreases. So last post-renal, there may be development of the anuria also. Suddenly they will develop the anuria. And urine sodium, so this urine sodium decreased to less than 20 milliequivalents. So it will be decreased to less than 20 milliequivalents. In intrarenal, it will be increased to 40 milliequivalents per liter. It may be in post-renal, it may be varies often and decreased to the less than or equal to the 20 milliequivalents per liter. This is the thing. And then we'll coming to the urinary sediments. So we are having some of the sediments like cast, abnormal cast. So we are having hyaline membrane cast. So these are things normally it will be normal. Some in pre-renal there will be sometimes normal, if not some hyaline type of cast will be appear. But in intrarenal there will be abnormal cast and debris will be appear. Usually post-renal that will be usually normal. And one more thing, urinary osmolarity. So urinary osmolarity, why urinary osmolarity will be increased to 500 milliosmol per liter. So there will be increased to 500 milliosmol per liter. Here what will happen, 350 milliosmol, similar to the serum. So that will be 350 milliosmol, and it may in post-renal it may vary, increases or sometimes equal to the serum levels. That is the thing. And then coming to the specific gravity, when the specific gravity, obviously in pre-renal condition it will be increased, but intrarenal it will be low or normal. Post-renal it may be varies. So these are the some of the characteristics, and then how the pre-renal and intrarenal, post-renal, on the whole their creatinine level will be increased, and then urine osmolarity will be increased. So decreased level will be urine output, sodium and sediment, some of the and then these only, and then increased mean your specific gravity is also will be increased. So diagnosis. So we'll enter into the diagnosis. In diagnosis, we'll ask regarding the history. So history of usage of any drugs or any we'll observe for dehydration or any blood loss and having anemia We'll see whether the patient is presented with anemia because of the blood loss and having a severe heart diseases. So any heart pertaining to the heart diseases, any previous, or patient is a known hypertensive or diabetic from past some years, we'll check it for this. So intrarenal we'll check it for the some of the drugs, and then postrenal we'll check for the obstructions. We'll check for the, in males we'll see whether a patient is having a BPH or not. We'll check it for that. And then we'll check for the some of the renal calculi. If there is any renal calculi, it may also leads to the postrenal obstructions. So this is the diagnosis. So we'll go for the biochemical analysis. In biochemical analysis, we'll have a RFTs. That is, RFT means renal function test, serum urea, creatinine, potassium, calcium, magnesium. So all these will come under this. And then urine analysis. Obviously we'll see for the urine analysis. In urine analysis we'll detect RBC cast or what are the type of Highland type of cast. We'll check it for that, and then we'll check for the urine osmolarity and all this, and then we'll go for renal ultrasound. Renal ultrasound will check whether the patient is having any obstructions or any tubular damages, or we'll see. And renal scan, MRI, CT can also be advised. So this is the retrograde pyelogram. So this is one of the procedure where here the X-rays are taken to look the bladder, ureters and kidneys. This test is done by using a fibro-optic urethroscope. So by using the fibro-optic urethroscope during the cystoscope procedure, wherein contrast dye is injected. So the contrast dye is injected directly into the uterus, and then the contrast which helps the parts of the body to show clearly. So that when the radio opaque substance or contrast can be instilled, the view can be appeared very clearly, and sometimes these patients may need the anesthesia also. This is the retrograde. So I am showing the hydronephrosis, how it will looks. The right kidney is showing this longitudinal dilated renal pelvis. Because of the dilated renal pelvis, there is the hydronephrosis. So this is the thing, and we'll have a therapy, collaborative therapy. So treatment of the precipitating factors. So we advise the patient for fluid restriction. So normally for 600 ml or 400 ml plus 24 hours of the fluid loss. How much fluid has been previously he lost, last 24 hours how much fluid he has lost, plus 400 or 600 ml. And fluid excess can be detected. How the fluid excess? Sometimes the patient may feel fluid excess. At that time it can be detected by the dyspnea, tachycardia and distension of the neck vein. We have to assess for this, and then if it is there, we have to give some of the medications to decrease the overload, like mannitol, Lasix. Some of the diuretics can be given. And lungs also, in this, when the fluid is excess, the lungs also auscultate for the moist crackles. So sometimes there will be crackles. In case of hypovolemia, so hypovolemia, obviously IV fluids and some of the blood products can be administered, and sometimes the patient may be having hypoproteinemia. So because of the hypoproteinemia, albumin infusion can also be given. So further of all these treatments, further to prevent more complications, we'll go for the dialysis. So we are having we call as a renal replacement therapies. So we are having renal replacement therapy. We have three types, that is a dialysis, hemodialysis, CRRT. That is a continuous renal replacement therapy. So some of the nutritional therapy. The nutritional therapy, we have to check weight daily. So they will be decreasing 0.2 to 0.5 kg per day. So we have to check it for that. High carbohydrate meal can be advised to not only for meeting the energy needs, but also the protein will be spared. This protein can be help us for improving the tissue, for the tissue healing. And then high protein diet is also advised. So adequate protein intake can be 0.6 to 2 grams per kg per day. So per day protein intake should be this much. And potassium restriction, obviously potassium and phosphate and sodium restriction should be there, and the calcium supplements and phosphate binding agents can be given, and sometimes total parental nutrition. So sometimes patient may have a total parental nutrition also. So diuretic therapy, we are having loop diuretics and osmotic diuretics. Hyperkalemia, so this is a very dangerous complication. So if it is more than 5 milliequivalent per liter, so we have a treatment that IV dextran. If the patient is having a very severe conditions, when we have to administer IV dextran 50% of the insulin. With this should be given. With this calcium replacement should be done. So calcium replacement will helps to shift of the potassium back into the cells. For that purpose calcium replacement can also kept. So first of all, IV dextran 50% with 50% of insulin can be administered. With this supplement, calcium supplement also given. So it can, with the calcium supplement there will be shift back to the cells. Potassium can be shifted back to, and then sodium polyester sulfonate. So this is the one type of, it can be given orally and can be given as an enema, so that the potassium will come out from the digestive tract. So there will be decreased amount of hyperkalemia. There will be potassium levels will be decreased, and sorbitol can be given. So with this combination, sodium polyester sulfonate, with this combination sorbitol can also be given. So, and one more thing, we'll see the for whom renal replacement should be given according to their GFR and according to the urine output criteria. This renal replacement therapies can be given. Risk means the patient some will be having risk. How risk? Increased serum creatinine. So because of the they will be having a increased serum creatinine 1.5 into the some baseline data. So whatever will have baseline data, that will be calculated. Or GFR can be, obviously glomerular filtration rate will be decreased, that will be 25%, that will be increased. And then urine output 0.5 ml per kg per hour for 6 hours. So where these patients are risk. So these patients are risk patients. So they sometimes they may not need the replacement therapy. Sometimes these patients may need, if they go into serious, they need the renal replacement therapy. Injury, when there is an injury, increased serum, so obviously increased serum creatinine 2 into baseline data, the GFR level will be decreased. So obviously GFR level will be very decreased. So urinary output, how much? So 0.5 ml per kg per hour for 12 hours. So that is the thing. And then failure, increased serum creatinine. When there is an increased serum creatinine, there is 3 into the baseline data. When there is a failure, 0.3 ml per kg for 24 hours. Sometimes this patient will be having anuria for 12 hours also. Loss means complete loss of the function. So when complete loss of the function, obviously anuria will be there. End stage kidney disease. In end stage kidney, if it is more than more than 3 months, if it is more than 3 months, it may cause, it is called as a acute end stage kidney disease. So we'll see the hemodialysis and peritoneal dialysis. So hemodialysis is when the blood is filtered to remove the toxins, from the body. The blood is circulated. So the blood, this is a machine that will filter the toxins, all this, and then entering of the. So this is the you'll see we are having 2 axes. So 2 axes. One axis is taking the blood, and then here filtration will be done and receiving the blood to the body. So this is the one type of hemodialysis. The patient will be sometimes having there will be equilibrium disturbance will be there, so we have to monitor the patient continuously, because అంటే ఒక్కసారిగా బయటికి వెళ్ళిపోయింది అనుకోండి బ్లడ్, సో ఈక్విలిబ్రియం అనేది డిస్టర్బ్ అవుతుంది. కాబట్టి వీ హ్యావ్ టు స్టే దేర్ అండ్ వీ హ్యావ్ టు అబ్జర్వ్ ఫర్ ఎనీ హైపర్ టెన్షన్ ఆర్ hypotension or any tachycardia. It sometimes arrest also occurs, so we have to observe the patient and see, and before going to connect we have to check the fistula. So fistula will be there. So fistula is there will be connection between the vein and the artery. So they will be connecting the vein and they will be creating a way for the vein and the artery, so that the blood will be circulated, bad blood will be coming out and good blood will be entering into the body. And peritoneal dialysis. In peritoneal dialysis, I think some of the people had seen in the wards the PD, peritoneal dialysis. So this is the fluid where the fluid will be entering into the abdomen, and it will be stays for 15 or 20 minutes and then out can be drained. So this procedure, for this procedure also we have to do carefully, so it will remove the nursing management. This is our part. So we'll assess the patient. What will we assess? So we'll assess for any small type of respirations are present, any distensions of the vein, and we'll check for the tachycardia, any hypertension, and then symptoms like patient is having sometimes lethargic, and then memory impairment will be there. We'll check all these symptoms are present or not. We'll ask the history regarding the hypertensive, whether they are using hypertensive and whether they are diabetic or hypertensive, previously they are hypertension. We'll see that, and then we'll see for previously any renal stone, previously patient is having a renal stones, or if male patient is there, we'll check for the BPH. We'll check all this, and then we'll start assessing. And then first is an excessive fluid volume related to the renal failure and fluid retention evidenced by the edema. So this is the excess fluid volume. So we already discussed that most probably excess fluid volume it has to be reduced. So we have to check first 24 hours. So after the 24 hours is 600 ml plus first 24 hours. So remaining fluid, for example, previous day patient is having some amount 600 ml of not 600, we'll take it as 800, no 400 ml of urine. So to the 400 ml of urine we have to add 600 ml. So totally 1000 ml. So the 1000 ml fluid should be administered to this patient. So when 1000 ml ante we have to carefully administer. So this is the thing. Risk for infection related to the invasive lines, uremic toxins and altered immune responses secondary to the kidney failure evidenced by dehydration, hypotension and shock. So imbalanced nutrition, less than body requirement related to metabolic state and dietary restriction, anorexia, nausea, vomiting. So this is the thing. And anxiety related to the disease process, therapeutic interventions and uncertainty, progressive evidence by the fear, SAD. So this is the thing. We'll planning. So in planning we'll prevent excess fluid volume, prevention of infections, decrease anxiety and maintenance of the nutritional status, and we have to prevent the furthermore complications. So maintenance of the fluid. So what will maintain? We have to careful administration of the IV fluids, careful maintenance of the IV chart. We have to see for the signs of the hyperkalemia were present or not, and severe electrolyte disturbances may be treated. So the severe electrolyte disturbances can be treated with the hemodialysis and peritoneal dialysis. And prevention of infections. Obviously the patient will be having indwelling urinary catheters or some of the PD catheters, so we have to take it as we have to follow some aseptic principles to clean or to take care of that. And IV lines asepsis may be maintained for essential. Asepsis is essential for the maintenance of the invasive IV lines and catheters, and IO chart is also maintained. maintained. So strict IO chart should be maintained. So some of the key parameters of the patient with established acute kidney injury. So the patient is having some of the key parameters. What is it? The fluid in and out. Every shift we have to monitor, and patient weight daily we have to monitor. Hemodynamic, blood pressure, heart rate, mean arterial pressure. That should be every shift. It has to be monitored. When there is a acute kidney injury. So sodium, potassium, chloride level, magnesium, phosphate levels, and blood urea, nitrogen, serum, creatinine levels. So that is will also be daily monitors. So drugs and dosages required regimens daily can be altered and given according to the patient condition. Nutritional regimen. So we have to follow the nutritional regimen, salt restriction diet, and then potassium restriction diet, and there will be have hypoalbuminemia, this protein diet. So the blood glucose. So blood glucose daily monitor, serum concentration, data for drugs, and then times of administration doses. So the and then some of the urine analysis. So obviously urine analysis calculate the measured creatinine clearance. So every time measure the urine collection performed. So every time we have to perform the urine collection, and then sometimes there will be plan for the renal replacement. So the when renal replacement should be start, we have to check it for this. So after this, I conclude my topic. So what is meant by kidney acute renal failure? Acute renal failure is sudden loss in the functioning of the kidney. So it is divided into pre-renal, intrarenal, and post-renal. It has some phases, that is initiation phase, oliguric phase, diuretic phase, and recovery phase. So rifle type of classification can be given whether this renal replacement therapy, when the renal replacement therapy should start. So this rifle type of classification will tell when to start the renal replacement therapy. In this hyperkalemia, so obviously hyperkalemia is a very dangerous complication. It has to be treated medically. It may causes more complications. Patient sometimes it leads to the death also. So it has to be monitored carefully. So this is regarding the acute renal failure. So with this I complete my topic. So thank you girls. This is an acute renal failure. It is a very important topic. It is for an examination point of view, it is very important. So write it as a notes, and try to write one exam on this acute renal failure. So don't forget. Thank you.